Hey everybody, Jordan Brown here with fun and affordable MTG, bringing you another Tiny Leaders deck tech. Our commander today is Anax and Cymede, which is a 3/2 for 1 red and white, which has First Strike, Vigilance, and Heroic. Whenever you cast a spell that targets Anax and Cymede, creatures you control get +1/+1 and gain trample until end of turn. The deck list is right here next to the card. So primarily, we are an aggro deck. We want to cast a number of creatures. A lot of our creatures have prowess, and we want to cast Anax and Cymede, and then we want to target either Anax and Cymede or one of the other heroic creatures if for whatever reason we have not been able to cast our commander or it's been removed. And so ideally, we'll be swinging in with a lot of creatures, and we'll be casting 1 or 2 spells on Anax and Cymede per turn. So all of our creatures will get nice and big, just from casting spells. Alright, let's go ahead and take a look at our creatures. First up, we have God Pharaoh's Faithful, which is a 0/4 for white. Whenever you cast a blue, black, or red spell, you gain 1 life. So primarily, again, we are an aggro deck, but it does not hurt us to have an early game blocker. It's a 0/4, it'll stop a couple of things. It'll also gain us life, which means that when we do swing out, if we don't have any other blockers left, we will be able to take more damage and gain advantage through our life. We also have Monastery Swiftspear, which is a 1/2 for red with haste and prowess. Prowess is whenever you cast a non-creature spell, this creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn. Soulscar Mage is another 1/2 for red with prowess. It does not have haste, but it has, if a source you control would deal non-combat damage to a creature an opponent controls, put that many -1/-1 counters on that creature instead. Essentially, this gives all of our creatures Wither. In case they get blocked, they will also deal damage to creatures with large butts so that they get smaller. Abbot of Carol Keep is a great card. It's a 1 and a red for a 2/1 with prowess, and when it enters the battlefield, exile the top card of your library. Until end of turn, you may play that card. So if it's a land, we just get it out there onto the battlefield. If it's not a land, we get some awesome advantage. We're probably going to get to cast 2 or 3 spells in that turn, provided, of course, we have not run out of mana. So we also have Firebrand Archer, which is a 2/1 for 1 and a red, and whenever you cast a non-creature spell, Firebrand Archer deals 1 damage to each opponent. So this is sort of a pseudo-prowess creature. Essentially, it deals damage that cannot be blocked, so if we have it out while we've got our commander or another heroic creature out that we're targeting, we start bumping them up, and if it's our commander, all of our creatures, including Firebrand Archer, will get buffed up, but also Firebrand Archer will just ping in for that damage every time we cast one of those. So we've also got Jeskai Student, which is a 1/3 with prowess for 1 in white. And we've got Nimbleblade Kenra, which is essentially a red version of Jeskai Student. It's a 1/3 with prowess for 1 in red. And so here we have our first other heroic creature in the deck. It's a 1/1 for white, and it has Heroic. Whenever you cast a spell that targets Phalanx Leader, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. So while this is not quite as good as Anax and Cymede, it can be powerful as a secondary option because it makes all of our creatures bigger on a more permanent level in a drawn-out game, which ideally we won't ever have to go into, but it happens sometimes. So we also have Seeker of the Way, which is a 2/2 for 1 and a white with prowess, and whenever you cast a non-creature spell, Seeker of the Way gains lifelink until end of turn. We also have Soulfire Grandmaster, which is another 2/2 for 1 and a white with lifelink. It gives our instants and sorcery spells lifelink, and we can pay 2 and 2 blue or red, and the next time we cast an instant or sorcery spell from our hand this turn, put that card into your hand instead of into your graveyard as it resolves. So giving our instants and sorcery cards is not super relevant because we only have 1 burn spell in this deck. But It is a 2/2 with lifelink that can give us card advantage by returning cards to our hand. Next up, we have Combat Celebrant, which is 2 and a red for a 4/1 that reads, if Combat Celebrant hasn't been exerted this turn, you may exert it as it attacks. When you do, untap all other creatures you control, and after this phase, there's an additional combat phase. This is just kind of pure value. It's probably going to be a game ender, because once we swing with it, we'll have played it the previous turn. So on this turn, we're swinging with it and our other creatures, and Anax and Cymede will have buffed them up, and if they're still alive, of course, we'll just get to swing again, which is going to be double damage with our Anax and Cymede triggers still there. Lastly, we have Fabled Hero, which is a 2/2 for 1 white with double strike and heroic. Whenever you cast a spell that targets Fabled Hero, put a +1/+1 counter on Fabled Hero. Tethmos High Priest is a 2/2 for 2 white that says heroic. Whenever you cast a spell that targets Tethmos High Priest, return target creature card with converted mana cost 2 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. This is going to give us a little bit of recursion in a longer game. So again, it's not as ideal of a target as our commander, but it's another one that can bring our creatures back. Thorned Moloch is a 2/2 with prowess for 2 and a red, and it has first strike as long as it's attacking. Alright, let's go ahead and look at some of our spells for targeting our creatures and pulling off our heroic triggers. We've got Bandage, which costs white. Prevent the next 1 damage that would be dealt to target creature or player this turn. Draw a card. All of our spells that cantrip, which is a fair number of them, are really powerful because they let us get that trigger in with our heroic creatures, preferably Anax and Cymede, and then put something back into our hand. Bandage specifically is not the most powerful, but it does give us a chance to save Anax and Cymede from a blocker. Crimson Wisps is 1 red for target creature becomes red and gains haste until end of turn. Draw a card. Defiant Strike costs white. Target creature gets +1/+0 until end of turn. Draw a card. Expedite costs red. Target creature gains haste until end of turn. Draw a card. Again, cantrip spells, I cannot express how good they are in this deck. Moving away from our cantrips a little bit, we've got Kindled Fury, which costs red. Target creature gets +1/+0 and gains first strike until end of turn. Act of Heroism costs 1 and a white. Untap target creature, it gets +2/+2 until end of turn and can block an additional creature this turn. This card can be replaced with a couple of others that aren't in this deck for the same cost, similar abilities. I like this one because since we are an aggro deck, we're going to be swinging out all the time. And this can be good as just another spell to give +2/+2 during combat, but it can also be a nice little defensive spell in those side cases. Center Soul costs 1 and a white, and target creature you control gains protection from the color of your choice until end of turn. So this means we're going to be able to protect one of our creatures, preferably our commander, and also give it some evasion from whatever creatures our opponents control of the chosen color. And because it has Rebound, we're going to get to cast another of it again for free at the beginning of our next upkeep. Fall of the Hammer is some of the best removal in this deck, which we only have a little bit of because it's not super necessary as an aggro deck. But it is 1 and a red for target creature you control deals damage equal to its power to another target creature. So this is better than a fight effect because it triggers our heroic abilities, and then we deal damage to their creature, but their creature doesn't deal damage back. Here we have Feat of Resistance for 1 and a white. Put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. It gains protection from the color of your choice until end of turn. Guided Strike costs 1 and a white. Target creature gets +1/+0 and gains first strike until end of turn. Draw a card, another cantrip, very good. Mighty Leap costs 1 and a white. Target creature gets +2/+2 and gains flying until end of turn. Teamer Battle Rage costs 1 and a red. Target creature gains double strike until end of turn. And then Ferocious That creature also gains trample until end of turn if you control a creature with power 4 or greater. So the Ferocious trigger is pretty much always going to go off if we're targeting Anax and Cymede because of the heroic ability going off before it. But the trample might be good on the off chance that we have not been able to cast our commander or that we have lost them. Finally, we have Tormenting Voice, which costs 1 and a red. As an additional cost to cast Tormenting Voice, discard a card, draw 2 cards. So this is the only effect in here like this, not because card draw is not good. As you can see, cantrips are very powerful, but because in this format, there's going to be a lot of fairly good removal. And the chances that our commander is going to get removed is pretty good, so we want to be able to cast them multiple times if necessary. In addition, we're going to get to swing in for more damage the more spells we can cast in a turn that target our heroic creatures and or that tick up our prowess triggers. Twin Bolt, the only burn spell in the deck, costs 1 and a red. Twin Bolt deals 2 damage divided as you choose among 1 or 2 target creatures and or players. Shoulder to Shoulder costs 2 and a white. It has support 2 and draw a card, so again, it cantrips, which is good. So how support works is that you put a +1/+1 counter on each of up to 2 target creatures. This is good because when we're playing one of our other heroic creatures, support 2 will allow Shoulder to Shoulder to target 2 of them, making them both go off. And of course, Tail Slash is a much like Fall of the Hammer, but it costs 1 generic mana more. It's 2 and a red. Target creature you control deals damage equal to its power to target creature you don't control. That's not going to be irrelevant all the time, but on the off chance that our opponent has a redirect ability, it could be useful. So, Cartouche of Zeal is the only enchantment in this deck. It costs a red, enchant creature you control, which is a target, so when Cartouche of Zeal enters the battlefield, target creature can't block this turn. This gives us some pseudo-evasion by making our opponent's blockers unable to block at all. Enchanted creature gets +1/+1 and has haste. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at our land base here. We've got these 4 lands that tap for both red and white. Battlefield Forge can tap for 1 generic mana, or it can tap to add red or white to your mana pool, and then it deals 1 damage to you. Inspiring Vantage enters the battlefield tapped unless you control 2 or fewer other lands, which is going to be very good. We're not going to be piling on the lands too quick, ideally. Then we can add red or white to our mana pool. Temple of Triumph enters the battlefield tapped, and when it does, it lets us scry 1, and then again taps for a red or a white. Windscarred Crag enters the battlefield tapped, gains us a life so that we can take more damage and gain that life advantage. Add red or white to your mana pool by tapping it. Then, of course, we've got Evolving Wilds, which lets us tap and sacrifice it to go get one of our basic lands. And then we round the deck out with 6 mountains and 7 plains. The URL to this deck list is right here up top. If you want to buy it from TCG Player, you can get it direct in 1 package for $17.70, or you can get it from verified sellers in 5 packages for $14.79, saving yourself about $3. Once again, this has been an Anax and Cymede Tiny Leaders deck, and the music you have heard in the background is by Kevin McLeod. I hope you all have an awesome day and a great time playing Tiny Leaders.